Hello, and welcome to another episode of Hour of Healing. Again, I am your weekly host, Joe Debra, and today we are talking about reducing uncertainties. Reducing uncertainties. Friends, you are in for a treat. Joining us today is a dear friend who happens to be a very self-made person. I have a lot of respect for this lady, and by the time we're done with our conversation, you will understand why. She's in the person of Miss Rachel Dami Odunewu. She is the founder of Divine Missions Health Center and also very passionate about helping people not just get to their purpose in life, but also actually discover their purpose. He is a public speaker and treats various topics for organizations, individuals, companies, you name it, she is there, she does it. Some of her masterpiece or her piece of work is what we'll be discussing today. She has a whole section that she does with companies about uncertainty reduction. So today you are in for a treat, and I pray that you will be blessed. Dear listeners, today we are talking about uncertainty reduction. Life in itself has a lot of uncertainties. As a matter of fact, I would say that many of the anxieties and the concerns we have about life and in life is because of this whole idea of being uncertain about certain things. And so on this podcast, weekly listeners are aware that we have been talking over the past couple of months, going back to the end of 2023, about the certainty of success in life. Remember, we have talked about several measures that you can use to gauge the level of success. But remember, as far as Divine Maker is concerned, our success in life, we say is guaranteed. But how do you know your success is guaranteed with all the uncertainties that go on around in our world today? There are financial uncertainties, there are marital uncertainties, there are economic uncertainties, and of course, there are educational uncertainties. But today, I think our focus is going to be primarily in the area of communication, because if we are going to form life-changing relationships that will help impact our success, certainly being able to communicate in a way that helps us establish success-driven relationships is certainly important. So with our sister Dami today, we will be diving into this topic as we talk about uncertainties of life in general, but primarily in the area of communication. She will be helping us address some of these uncertainties in life and also be able to dive into how we can not only reduce these uncertainties in our own life, but also in the lives of our loved ones and families. Dami, we will get started, but again, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Wonderful. So we will get right in there because I believe we have a lot to discuss when it comes about talking about uncertainties in life. So can you please lay the foundation for us what the uncertainty reduction theory is about?
Yes, absolutely. The term was, or the theory came about in 1975 through two guys by the name Richard Calabrese and Charles Berger. Both of those guys created, it's a communication theory. It's supposed to help us kind of see what's happening between people who are unfamiliar with each other.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So, if the uncertainty reduction theory is about two people or the communication between two persons who are unfamiliar with each other, then can you tell us a bit more about how uncertainty becomes something that we have to worry about when we talk about communication?
Yeah, absolutely. So, uncertainty reduction theory, to give the actual definition, it asserts the notion that when interacting, people need information from the other party in order to reduce the uncertainty about the person And in gaining that information, or in gaining every piece of information, they're able to predict the other person's behavior and
Mm.
resulting actions, all of which, according to uncertainty reduction theory, they are crucial in the development of any relationship. So, in other words, the less information you have about a new person, whether personal, professional, whether you're in ministry, getting out there, people are going to feel more certain about what you bring into their world when they have more information about you.
Thank you so much, Dami. And I thought that it would be great for us to have this discussion, this episode of Hour of Healing, because we've spent the last probably 4 weeks talking about obtaining relationships that impact our success. And so when I had read about the suggested topics that you had sent to me, I thought this will certainly tie into what we've been talking about, because if you're going to form a relationship with someone, and in this case we had focused on the non-romantic relationship, because our overarching topic had been the certainty of success. But
Right.
if you're going to form a relationship with someone which will impact or had a potential to impact your ability to be successful and to get to your purpose in life, then it's certainly important that you are certain about the person that you are going to form that relationship with. So I think your expertise today will certainly tie into what we've been doing and also be a good segue into our next couple of weeks discussion. So our next question for you then is, how does one assess the level of uncertainty that they have? Because in your answer, you said the more information we have about someone, the more certain we're going to be about them.
Mm-hmm.
But how do I assess the level of information that I have? Because we live in a time and an age where misinformation is at an all-time peak, I would say. So how do we
Yeah.
go about assessing this, the level of information we are acquiring, which will help us with our uncertainties?
So the reality is, for the average human being, you walk into a room, you are meeting somebody for the first time, you're not really thinking in that moment the impact of the lack of information, or
Mm,
the presence of information. You walk in, the person is receptive, you can feel, there's that connection there. You can tell their genuineness from the way that they are warm towards you, and just open towards you. But the
mm,
reality is, when there is a lack of information, and many times when I talk about uncertainty reduction theory, people think that it needs to be some big information.
mm,
When we're talking about relationship development, whether personal, professional, every little bit of information counts.
mm,
It may even be information that has nothing to do with anything,
mm,
that will
mm,
help people feel like, now I know Dami better. Now I feel more comfortable with Dami. Oh, now I want to see Dami again. I want to
mm,
have another sit down with Dami, because I felt like there was openness, and she was providing an atmosphere of a free flow of information.
mm,
And so, what the theory really shows is the impact of the lack of it. You walk away, you haven't really felt like you've learned anything more about that person, about what they're offering. Taking a business case, for instance, you
mhm,
don't really feel like there's anything that you've learned about the potential business partner. You're going to walk away a little more skeptical, and you're not going to be like willing to enter into a business relationship, because you feel like there's still something missing.
correct.
Right. And that's really what uncertainty, and the funny thing about uncertainty reduction was, it was a simple theory that I learned back in college,
Mm,
and maybe that will kind of put things into context. It was a simple thing I learned back in college. We learned a lot of theories. I was a communications major with a heavy emphasis on healthcare.
Mm.
And then I got out of college. I stepped into my first, job. I had 33 direct reports, and
Oh.
28 of them were white, two Romanians, two Asians, one Black American that I ended up having to fire because he assaulted a coworker. And
Oh.
half of my 28 white employees, we didn't see eye to eye,
Mm.
right? And I was in that job for about a year and 3 months. And about 3 months into the job, I had a page long of complaints to human resources against me.
Mm.
So this is really where all of this began. And in that moment, when my boss called me into his office, he was very certain that this was discrimination. I can't believe this is happening in this time and age. My in my emotional state, I, agreed with him, and he would try to work together to navigate those difficult, situations. And in that moment, I wasn't really thinking, could it be because these people have not yet felt like they can predict my behavior? Could it be
Mm.
because these
Mm.
people have not yet felt that they can predict anything that comes from me? Because
Wow.
they, up until that point, they'd never had an African, supervisor.
Mm.
And so for many of my employees, I was their very first African supervisor who now they have to trust, to have their back.
Correct.
Right. And I'm going right into work mode. I'm like, let's do this. I'm assigning you to this unit. You're here, you're there, do this, you know, but I have failed to do what? To connect with them.
Correct.
And whether it's, in a work setting or on the mission field, right? If I go out, I'm going to Cuba next month. When I get to Cuba, there are literally people that I may have a difficulty connecting with because they're experiencing some of the things that, my employees were experiencing.
Mm.
And I'm there passionate. I'm like, I want to win souls for Christ. Let's just get into this. Let's do this and win souls and destroy hell and all of that. But, you know, I'm dealing with people who have never met me before. Well, some of them
Mm.
at this point have, because I've been there before. But, for the majority of people I'm going to encounter, they've never met me before. So what is that thing that tells them that they can trust me to come closer and lead them to Christ, to come to them and
Mm.
talk to them about Christ, right? And
Wow.
that's really what uncertainty reduction helps to accomplish. It's taking into consideration the things that go missed when we talk about information as a tool for developing relationships.
Wow.
And so it wasn't until years after I'd left that job, I started putting the pieces together, and I was like, oh my gosh, this was really a chaotic situation because,
Correct.
there was nothing that was really providing an environment for either of us to feel like we could build trust with the other person,
Mm.
right?
Mm.
And so why should they want me around?
Exactly. Exactly.
So,
Well, thank you so much. That's a very interesting story. And I think we'll be diving into a few aspects of this story because, as you rightly said, that was what set you on this journey or this path that a few years later you were able to come onto this important skill that we all need. And so we'll be diving into it. But before we go into some of the core concepts of uncertainty reduction theory, I want to ask you about some factors that contribute to our uncertainties about people. Because in speech right now, you mentioned discrimination, you mentioned mistrust. Are there any other factors that contribute to having uncertainties about people?
yeah, definitely. I mean, the first factor is fear.
Mm, the
Fear
fear
of
factor.
the unknown. I don't know who this person is. I don't know what I can expect from them, you know. And even though we're not consciously thinking about what the impact of that fear is, we are, I mean, as humans, we are wired to cautiously, which kind of goes into the next one. It's caution. We walk
Mm,
into a new conversation, and there's a lot of caution that results from that place of fear, which when
mm,
you look at it, it's all like just uncertainty. I don't know who this person is. But the problem with that is, we, without consciously doing it, we let the fear and the caution dictate
mm,
how we
mm,
proceed with the with
mm.
that person, right? Or
Wow.
with that opportunity, with that, I mean, we let it dictate our next steps. But my challenge is always for people to take the approach of curiosity. Take the
Mm,
approach of
mm.
curiosity. You may not know much about this person. If there's something that you're wondering about, be the one that asks the
Ask
question,
about it.
or that's
Correct.
looking for the answers, because there are things that we will get answers to if we really pay attention,
Mm,
right? But
mm.
we're so caught up in ourselves, we're caught up in the fear that we're feeling, and we're holding back. And so fear and caution, I will say, prevents that relationship from moving forward.
Wow.
But when you take the approach of curiosity, openness, all of those things, vulnerability
Mm,
is a big
mm,
one.
mm.
Vulnerability is a big one. Be
Wow.
vulnerable. Help them see that you're as, uncertain as they are, but
Wow.
that you're intentional about helping the relationship move forward. If that's what needs to happen.
Wow, thank you so much. And I think these are powerful in themselves because, like you rightly said, out of fear and out of being cautious, sometimes we allow that to get the best of us.
Yeah.
And whenever fear predominates in anything that we do in life, it puts us in a place where curiosity is sacrificed, where discipline even is sacrificed.
Hmm.
And I think there is also an issue or a component of unawareness
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
also plays in there. And so I just wanted to add
Yep.
that on. But these are very powerful things that you given to us, and we will. This is hour of healing, so we will be tying all these into how it helps our listeners heal in a few minutes. But I want to go ahead and ask you about some of the core concepts of uncertainty reduction theory, and then we will be able to start dishing out some healing to our listeners.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have four things that I consider the four keys for connecting with people, for
Hmm.
really, and then there's the researched um strategies for reducing uncertainty, and I'll talk about that later as well.
Okay.
But I before even the research, on my own, like, as I've been working with uncertainty reduction theory, these are four keys that I believe help people to connect with each other, to develop relationship with each other. And the first thing is desire.
Hmm.
It's really leaning into our humanity and knowing that at our core, we have a desire to connect with people. At
Yes.
our, we cannot succeed in life without other people, right? And
Hmm.
so the average human being is, when they're interacting with people on their day to day, when they're meeting new people, at our core, there is a need for us to bond with that person, to feel
Correct.
like, you know this is worth something,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
And so desire is that first thing. It's facing that reality and leaning into that reality, that you are not less of a person because you are acknowledging your need for other people,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
And the second thing is the benefit of doubt.
Hmm.
Oftentimes it's, either coming from a place of, I've never, I don't know anything about this person. I've never met anybody who is a representative of where this person comes from, especially in, a lot of my talk on uncertainty reduction theory, I focus on multicultural differences and those types of
Correct.
things, right? So somebody has never met a Nigerian before, and maybe whatever they've heard before are more of like the stereotypical things. Now you're meeting a Nigerian for the first time, and
Mm,
you're approaching them from that place of stereotype, your
mm,
preconceived notions about them, and so I say that second component is benefit of doubt. A person or two is not a tangible indicator of where they come from,
where they come from, yes.
and so it's always important to approach people from that angle.
Mm,
I'm
mm,
meeting this person even though I think I know something about, you know people who are from the South. Now I have the opportunity to learn who this person is, and
mm,
I'm going to
mm,
let them give me, you know, the basis for who they are,
mm, mm,
not by what I have already crafted about them before I met them,
yes.
you know. And then the third piece is courage. It's
Mm,
really, you honestly don't know. A big part of uncertainty reduction theory is the reason we need the information about people is so that we can predict their behavior, right?
mm, mm.
And the resulting actions of their behavior.
True,
But
true.
the reality is sometimes when you cannot predict the behavior, it turns out bad,
Yes.
right? But will you then hold yourself back from connecting with a person because you are not you have not yet been able to predict their behavior? And
Mm,
so that's
mm,
always my third encouragement is the outcome might be unpredictable, but take the risk anyway. Walk
mm,
into the room, look at everybody in the room, and the person that maybe is the least likely person that you would walk up to that person and try to, connect with them,
wow. Wow.
right?
Wow.
And then the last piece is the vulnerability I mentioned earlier. Right
Mm.
now, our society is very, there's a, how do I put it, epidemic of offense.
Yes.
You know, people are in position to really take a lot of offense from others,
Yes.
right? And because of that, people hesitate to connect with other people. People hesitate to say what they want to say,
Mm,
right?
mm,
When you could really be speaking, to your point, from a place of a lack of awareness. You don't have
correct.
exposure, there's no awareness of, this person, where they're from or who they are. There's no awareness. Maybe you want to meet a business leader who is an American. You don't have an awareness, right?
Mm,
But you're still taking the chance, and you're stepping into the space that that person occupies. And
mm.
I say it's okay to not know. It's okay to walk into the space and admit that you don't know so that they can teach you,
Yes.
right? It's
Yes.
okay to say something, get it wrong, let somebody call you out and say, oh, that was incorrect.
Mm,
And you say,
mm.
oh, I'm sorry, but I appreciate that, you're able to tell me what the accurate thing is.
Wow.
And you know what that does? It helps to create that bond,
Mm,
because
mm.
now there's not only openness to connect with the person, there's openness to, really show that you are genuinely wanting to connect with the person,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
right? And when the person sees that from you, they're gonna want to be around you because they know that, Dami is not trying to be right all the time. Dami is not trying to, Dami is willing to say the wrong thing, be told that it's wrong.
Mm,
And I don't think you saw this. I posted about it on LinkedIn, but I had gone to Aldi, and
okay.
the manager, there was a misunderstanding between us. Long story short, he kept in a stern tone, kept telling me, ma'am, look at me in the face. Ma'am, look at me in the face.
Mm,
Right. So I left. I ended up leaving. I was in a hurry. And later on, a few weeks later, when I went back there, I saw him and I decided to address the situation. And as soon as I said to him, I said, I'm a Nigerian woman who lives in Republic, Missouri. Do you know what that means? He immediately thought that I was trying to tell him that he was racist.
Oh. Mm.
And I said, you're completely missing the point. I said to him, in my culture, eye contact is disrespectful.
Mm-hmm.
So when you insist on me looking at you in the face and you say it multiple times, that is a problem. He was still so defensive about it. I said, you know what? I'll let you take a minute and think about it. I'll continue shopping. So I kept shopping. And then as I was leaving the store, he ran out to meet me and he said, it took me a minute, but I think I finally got what the problem was,
Mm.
And he said, I'm so sorry. Can we start all over? I said, absolutely. You know what I'm saying? Absolutely. Now, maybe he's encountered people who automatically called him racist. He's
Correct.
encountered people who automatically said, you know, he was discriminating them. And now I'm now making a statement asking him what it means to be Nigerian in Republic. And he's wondering, what is she, what are we getting at? So his fear, he responded from a place of fear of, I don't want to be that person that's labeled as racist,
Correct.
you know, and he could have stayed in that place of fear and just avoided the conversation altogether. But you know what? The next time I go to Aldi, we're just going to avoid each other. Now I can go to Aldi, we say hello to each other, we smile
Correct.
at each other, all of that thing.
So thank you so much, Dami, for both the points that you so eloquently list out for us, and also with your own life experience that go on to actually give validity to these points. And for our audience who are obviously outside the stratosphere of the United States and even the state of Missouri, Republic, let's say the African population in the city of Republic is
It's less than
um,
2%.
it's less than definitely less than 2%. And so when she says that, that is what she's referring to, the courage that it takes somebody in her position to even be able to live in that place. Is that alone is actually very impactful. But there's a few things as you were talking, Dami, that I was making notes of these things. And I think we will probably be wrapping up our first part of this conversation. And then in part two, we will be picking up with the research that is out there concerning some of these core concepts of uncertainty reduction theory. But during our training, one of the things that our behavioral health director kept talking to us about when we were training was the idea of our own personal prejudices
Mm-hmm.
and the things that go into forming those personal prejudices that we have, that we bring to the table. And I think that is one thing that is missing in our society today, that we don't give room for that. People have gone through various experiences, whether
Yes.
good or bad. And so, for instance, in your example, if you had not given that person the benefit of the doubt and also been confrontational when, as soon as the race card was pulled, become confrontational, this could have turned out for the very worst of
Yeah.
scenarios.
Yep.
But understanding your own personal prejudice, your own personal biases, because of where you grew up, the things you grew up in, where you come from, your cultural values, what is important to you, those allow you, when you are aware of those biases in yourself, allows you to be able to not only recognize that people also have their own biases, but also you make room for them to be able
Air.
to express themselves. And I
Mm-hmm.
think the vulnerability component is something that we will go back to again, because it's not that I have a problem with people being vulnerable. But in our society, whenever you show vulnerability, it's equated to being weak.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's something that we have to dive into it a bit more because, as I keep saying, we want our listeners to have healing, but we don't want anybody listening to us and then getting up and say, okay, I have the desire to connect, so I'm just going to give everybody the benefit of the doubt and do everything else. So I really think we should pick up on the vulnerability concept because there's so much in our society today. For the record, I think it's very important. I think it's something that actually allows us to thrive in whatever we are doing. And in this case, allows us to be able to bond to people. But you and I both know, Dami, that whenever you say vulnerability in our culture, in our context today, is taken completely out of
Yeah.
context and it becomes something very difficult to deal with. But before we close today's session, I will give our guest the platform again so she can kind of summarize what we have discussed so far for us. And then we will dive into more of the core concepts and more of vulnerability when we come back in the next section. But permit me to say that these principles doesn't only actually apply to the aspect of communication alone, but also in every aspect or area of our life.
Yeah, thank you. So far we've been talking about uncertainty reduction theory, which, as we shared earlier, it's basically the notion that we need information in order to reduce our uncertainties about people, about other aspects of life. But we need information in order to be able to predict the behavior of other people, be able to predict the outcome of certain people and situations, and certain things that sometimes will create that uncertainty for us. We talked about things like fear and caution as things that hold us back, and things like curiosity, openness, vulnerability as components of that help to enrich and increase certainty in situations. And so that's what we've been talking about so far. And I'm excited to dive into the strategies for reducing uncertainty when we come back after the break.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, dear listeners, for joining us this week on Hour of Healing as we bring you this all important topic, reducing uncertainties in life. And as Dami has said, we will be picking up on part two about talking about some of the strategies we can use to reduce these uncertainties so that we will be able to form more meaningful relationships, stronger relationships that will impact our life as a whole as far as pursuing our purpose is concerned. God bless you, and we will see you same time next week. Bye bye.